Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wealthologist Weekly, your go to source for all things financial planning and wealth management. I am Chris Hobart, the Wealthologist, and today we're going to break down some more of the latest financial news in an informative and hopefully helpful way for you. Do me a favor, though. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe button to stay updated with our weekly insights. All right, let's dig in. So last week, Donald Trump proposed an idea that got everyone talking. And the idea was, let's replace the income tax with a tariff on imports. That's right. Let's just get rid of that income tax and just basically tax imports. Well, Washington, D.C., collectively, they kind of scoffed at this and said, not going to happen, not possible. But the thing was, the average American was intrigued. In fact, we heard from a lot of clients, what's this all about? Can we avoid taxes? So today, I want to dive into why this idea, as it stands, probably won't work in our current system, but it may be something that's worth discussing and digging a bit deeper into in years to come. So first, let's clear up why this proposal probably isn't feasible right now. To replace the revenue that comes from income taxes, which is pretty significant, the U.S. would need to have sky-high tariffs, which, if that happened, it would very likely shut down world trade. Remember, even much lower tariffs that came out during the Smoot-Hawley era back in the 1930s, that helped trigger the Great Depression. But before we just totally get rid of the idea, I want to consider it as a starting point for discussion. So we're going to kind of go into a couple of different areas as we discuss this. So we're actually going to start talking a little bit about SpaceX. Now, I don't know if you've been following Elon Musk and SpaceX, but specifically the Starship, which recently had its fourth launch. Have you seen that? It's pretty amazing what they're doing right now. What we're witnessing is the process of iterative development. Each launch that they've done with SpaceX has gone further and achieved a bit more success. The neat thing is Henry Ford did the same thing, or at least something similar, with the automobile and assembly lines. The concept of iterative learning is common in the private sector, but it doesn't really seem to exist in the government sector. So take the space shuttle, for example, which was supposed to be reusable, but ended up costing over $1 billion per flight. Now, let's compare that to what's happening with SpaceX, where reusing boosters has driven the cost per flight down to $3 to $5 million. The cost to put a kilogram of payload in space was $55,000 with the shuttle, but it's only $2,700 with SpaceX Falcon 9, a 20-fold reduction. That's significant, and that is the benefit of private sector versus government. You see, this now brings us back to Trump's tariffs proposal, right? Critics like Paul Krugman argue that the tariff would have to rise to 133% or higher to raise the same revenue as income tax. That's huge. But instead of wondering if we could run the government like SpaceX runs its operations, he dismisses the idea outright. While Trump's idea right now seems a bit crazy to some, it is thinking outside the Beltway box. The current system of static scoring models and entrenched bureaucracies that represent the government, oftentimes that can lack the incentive to become more productive to learn iteratively. Government programs designed to fix inequality and improve public services often end up entrenching the problems that we're meant to solve. For example, in the 19th century, up through 1930, the U.S. government funded itself with tariffs and excise taxes, spending less than 3% of GDP during peacetime. Now, today, federal spending is roughly 23% of GDP. And when you add state and local government spending, the total goes to about 50% of our annual output. That's huge. Let's not forget that trade is crucial for economic growth. We got to have it. So relying on imports for national security, that is a risk. Additionally, about 40% of Americans don't actually pay income taxes, while the top 50% of earners pay pretty much all of it. A tariff would essentially be what we call a consumption tax, which means that everyone would pay based upon what they're consuming, which would possibly lead to more scrutiny of government spending as well. So to kind of wrap this up, Trump's proposal, It's interesting to think about to replace income tax with tariffs. And while it might seem totally unworkable right now, it at least opens the door to a much needed discussion about the size and the funding of our government. As we've talked about time and time again, tax rates are set to go up in 2026. So maybe it's time for us to at least explore what we consider an iterative process to maybe change or rethink taxes, similar to what we see in successful private sector companies like SpaceX. Not a guarantee that things are going to be perfect, and it's not saying that this is the right plan, but it is something to think about of changing how we're taxing and what that would mean for the publics. Now, at our firm, we're always looking at what that means specifically for our clients. Of course, we don't think this is going to be something pushed through anytime soon, but it is something that we kind of run some models and think, that'd be an interesting thing to do, even if it's not immediately possible. All right. Thank you again for tuning into the Wealthologist Weekly. If you like this video, do me a favor, go to YouTube, like it, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you next week with more insights on financial planning and wealth management. So stay informed and stay wealthy.